The non-avian dinosaurs are among the most famous and successful groups of animals to ever walk the earth. They gave rise to some of the largest carnivores and herbivores the planet has ever seen, beasts so massive they're almost impossible to imagine today. And while sheer size often played a crucial role in their dominance, it wasn't their only advantage. Dinosaurs were incredibly diverse in their adaptations, showcasing a stunning array of tools and weapons. From razor-sharp claws to whip-like tails, and even elaborate armor, they were evolutionary masterpieces, perfectly tailored to survive and thrive in their environments. These traits helped them establish a reign that remains one of the most impressive in the history of life on Earth. This reign wasn't just long, it was monumental. For over 150 million years, these creatures ruled the Earth, so much so that an entire geological era is often associated with them. The Mesozoic era, encompassing the Triassic, Jurassic, and Cretaceous periods, is frequently referred to as the Age of Dinosaurs. But here's a twist: dinosaurs didn't always rule this era. In fact, for a significant part of the Mesozoic, particularly during the Triassic period, dinosaurs weren't the dominant creatures at all. At first, they hadn't even evolved yet, and when they finally appeared, they faced a harsh reality. They were far from the top of the food chain. For millions of years, they lived in the shadows of another fearsome group of predators. These creatures were every bit as terrifying and formidable as the dinosaurs would one day become. Interestingly, this dynamic mirrors what would later happen to dinosaurs themselves when mammals rose to dominance. The Triassic wasn't an age of dinosaurs, it was the age of the Rauisuchians. Now, who were these Rauisuchians? To put it simply, they were apex predators like no other, pushing the limits of ferocity and survival. Strangely enough, they were close relatives of the dinosaurs, both belonging to the Archosauria clade. But here's the catch: while dinosaurs are part of the branch that would eventually lead to birds, Rauisuchians belong to the Pseudotsuchians, a division that includes modern crocodilians and their ancient relatives. This means that, technically, dinosaurs and Rauisuchians were distant cousins, though you'd never guess it looking at them. It's believed that Rauisuchians first appeared around 249 million years ago, during the early Triassic period. Today, the group is recognized as an informal classification, often referred to as paraphyletic, meaning it includes various species that don't neatly fit into one evolutionary lineage. Despite this, one thing is clear: Rauisuchians were nothing short of extraordinary. They are typically described as large quadrupedal predators, with some species being exceptions to this rule. The group boasted at least 39 different genera, each unique in its adaptations and hunting strategies. What makes Rauisuchians particularly fascinating is their size. Among all the terrestrial predators to ever walk the earth, these creatures came closest to matching the colossal statures of the giant theropod dinosaurs that would emerge later. Most Rauisuchians measured between 13 to 20 feet in length, absolutely massive for their time. And their size was only part of the story. These predators were powerful, agile, and equipped with fearsome features that made them the undisputed kings of their ecosystems. But their dominance wasn't just about brute force. It was also about timing, adaptation, and a prehistoric world on the brink of transformation. As we delve deeper into the Triassic, we'll uncover how Rauisuchians carved out their place at the top and why their reign, though spectacular, ultimately came to an end, paving the way for the rise of the dinosaurs. Comparable in size to today's giant crocodiles, Rauisuchians were fearsome predators of the Triassic world. In fact, many grew even larger. One of the most iconic members of this group, Pastosuchus, stands out as a prime example. Measuring over 7 meters, or 23 feet in length, it was undeniably the apex predator in its ecosystem. But remarkably, even Pastosuchus wasn't the largest Rauisuchian. Relatives like Sarcopterygius and Prestosuchus pushed the limits even further, reaching lengths of 7.5 meters or 25 feet. These sizes place them well beyond any terrestrial mammalian carnivores, both those alive today and those long extinct. This incredible size advantage made Rauisuchians the undisputed top predators in most Triassic ecosystems. In many cases, they were not only the largest predators but the largest animals in their environments, period. This dominance was especially pronounced during the early Triassic, a time when massive herbivores were still recovering from the devastating Permian-Triassic extinction event, the most catastrophic mass extinction in Earth's history. With fewer large herbivores to compete for resources or to act as prey, Rauisuchians thrived, taking center stage in shaping the ecosystems of the time. But Rauisuchians didn't just dominate, they also evolved into giants that set records. Enter Phaseolasuchus, a true titan of the Rauisuchian lineage and a contender for the largest non-dinosaurian terrestrial predator in history. This behemoth roamed northwestern Argentina during the Nourian stage of the late Triassic. Its sheer size was astonishing. Smaller specimens already outsized most other Rauisuchians, while larger individuals reached jaw-dropping proportions. Some estimates suggest Phaseolasuchus weighed as much as 3.1 tons and measured up to 10 meters, or 33 feet in length. To put that into perspective, Phaseolasuchus was larger than several well-known theropod dinosaurs, including Gorgosaurus, Majungasaurus, and Carnotaurus. With this kind of bulk, it wasn't just a formidable predator, it was a force of nature. Few creatures in its environment would have dared to challenge it, and most would have avoided crossing its path entirely. This size advantage made Phaseolasuchus not only the ruler of its time, but also a benchmark in terrestrial predation. What's even more striking is how Phaseolasuchus stacks up against predators that came after it. Even after the extinction of the non-avian dinosaurs, when mammals took over the Earth, no terrestrial predator ever reached its size. The largest mammalian carnivores, such as Barbarophilus or the bear-like Arctodus, were mere shadows in comparison. The closest any terrestrial predator came was the massive crocodilian Baronosuchus, which, despite its impressive size, was still only a bit more than half the weight of Phaseolasuchus. Given its monstrous size and strength, it's no surprise that everything in Phaseolasuchus's ecosystem, including some of the early dinosaurs, would have lived in its shadow. Dinosaurs had already been on the scene for around 30 million years by this time and had undergone significant diversification. Among these early dinosaurs were species like Calorodosaurus, Pablinator, and Zooposaurus, which were no match for the colossal Phaseolasuchus. Even the sauropodomorphs, precursors to the iconic long-necked dinosaurs of later eras, were not safe. One such sauropodomorph, Lesomsaurus, is believed to have been a primary prey item for Phaseolasuchus. This massive herbivore was one of the earliest sauropods to emerge, and its substantial size may have been one of the factors driving the evolution of Phaseolasuchus into such a giant. After all, as the prey grows larger, so too must the predator. This dynamic relationship between predator and prey highlights a crucial moment in evolutionary history where the seeds for future dinosaurian dominance were being sown. And yet, at this stage, the world still belonged to the Rauisuchians. Their reign was far from over, and their story is a testament to the power of adaptation and the relentless competition for survival in the Triassic world. With some individuals weighing an incredible 7 tons, the prey of the late Triassic world was no small game. And as history has shown us, big prey almost always means the rise of equally big predators. For Lesomsaurus, one of the massive sauropodomorphs of its time, this spelled trouble. Its main threat came in the form of Phaseolasuchus, a Rauisuchian predator growing rapidly into a dominating force. Studies of Phaseolasuchus's fossilized bones revealed a trait common among Rauisuchians: rapid growth rates. Remarkably, their growth was often faster than that of the early dinosaurs they shared their ecosystems with. This gave them a significant edge, allowing them to reach sizes and levels of power unmatched by most of their competitors. But raw size wasn't their only advantage. To take down prey as large as Lesomsaurus, paleontologists believe Fossilisochus relied on its titanic skull, a weapon of destruction in itself. Measuring about the size of an adult human, this enormous head was equipped with a lethal arsenal of sharp, curved teeth. These teeth were built to slice through flesh efficiently, causing severe blood loss and shock, leaving little chance for escape. What set Ryoshukian teeth apart wasn't just their size, but their design. These long, slightly curved teeth acted almost like sabers, capable of inflicting massive wounds with minimal effort. This made them exceptionally dangerous predators, even if they weren't always the heaviest creatures in their ecosystems. One of the clearest examples of this cutting prowess comes from Sarcopterygius, another of the giant Rausuchians and one of the best-studied members of the group. Like many of its relatives, Sarcopterygius boasted a massive head, roughly the size of a medium-sized dog. But here's the twist. Despite its fearsome appearance, research has shown that its bite force was relatively weak, comparable to that of a modern gharial. Gharials, as you may know, are long-snouted crocodilians specialized for catching fish, not for crushing or tearing apart large prey. So how did Sarcopterygius still dominate? The answer lies in its teeth. Their specialized cutting design made brute force unnecessary. A quick bite was enough to shear off chunks of flesh, enabling it to take down large prey without the need for an overly powerful bite. Of course, this efficiency came with a drawback. Its weak bite likely meant that Sarcopterygius couldn't access tougher cuts of meat, often leaving scraps behind that it simply couldn't reach. However, not all Rausuchians shared this limitation. In fact, recent studies suggest that different Rausuchians developed varied bite strengths and feeding strategies. While some specialized in slicing through large prey, others targeted smaller, softer animals. This adaptability allowed Rausuchians to exploit a wide range of food sources, from early dinosaurs to Dicynodonts, smaller non-archosaur reptiles, and even other Pseudosuchians. This diversity in hunting styles wasn't the only thing that set Ryukians apart. One of their most impressive traits and a significant advantage over early dinosaurs was their armor. Much like their modern crocodilian relatives, Rausuchians were covered in osteoderms, bony plates embedded in their skin. These osteoderms formed protective layers, often running along their backs, necks, and sometimes their tails. Unlike many other armored animals, Rausuchians had particularly thick osteoderms, even more robust than those of today's crocodiles. And that's saying something, considering crocodiles are already known for their resilience against cuts, slashes, and other injuries. Interestingly, the arrangement of these bony plates wasn't always symmetrical. Some researchers speculate that this asymmetry might have served a social purpose, helping individual Rausuchians recognize each other. The shapes of the osteoderms varied widely among species, with some, like those of Prehistoric, taking on unexpected forms. For example, some of its plates were heart-shaped, though not for spreading love, as their primary function was still defense. But here's where it gets fascinating. Given their dominant position as apex predators, Rausuchians didn't need this armor to fend off dinosaurs or other Triassic animals. Instead, it's believed that the osteoderms were primarily a defense mechanism against rival Rausuchians. In a world where the biggest threats often came from your own kind, having an extra layer of protection was a game changer. This combination of cutting-edge teeth, adaptable feeding strategies, and heavy armor made Rausuchians one of the most formidable groups in the Triassic. Their reign over land would continue until the end of the era, where they left behind a legacy of dominance, ingenuity, and sheer survival instinct qualities that paved the way for their modern descendants, the crocodilians. This would make perfect sense when you consider the placement of their osteoderms, which were concentrated along the top of their bodies. For most predators, especially those smaller than Rausuchians themselves, this natural armor would have been nearly impossible to penetrate. But when facing off against other Rauisuchians, their true rivals in the food chain, this protective layer became absolutely vital. However, not all Rauisuchians came equipped with such a heavy-duty defense system. Some members of the group, instead of relying on armor, opted for tough but unarmored skin. One notable example was Hesychus, a smaller Rauisuchian that lived in what is now China. Unlike its heavily armored cousins, this nimble predator traded protection for agility. Its lightweight skeletal structure likely gave it the speed and maneuverability needed to survive in environments where brute strength wasn't always the answer. Another armorless Rauisuchian was Arizinosaurus, whose name gives away its stomping grounds, modern-day Arizona. But when you first lay eyes on this creature, it's not the lack of osteoderms that stands out. What really grabs attention is its sail. That's right, like some dinosaurs, Arizinosaurus developed a large sail-like structure along its back. This striking feature is a prime example of convergent evolution, where unrelated species develop similar traits to adapt to comparable challenges. Scientists believe that the sail of Arizinosaurus may have served a critical function in thermoregulation. The Triassic period was notoriously hot, with global temperatures averaging nearly double what they are today. Having a sail might have helped Arizinosaurus manage its body temperature more effectively in this sweltering climate. But that's not all. It wasn't the only Rauisuchian to sport a sail. Others, such as Tichinocicus, Brahmsgrovea, and Hypsilorhynchus, also developed these striking structures. While thermoregulation is a popular hypothesis, there's another theory about the sails: social display. These sails might have been brightly colored or patterned, helping Rauisuchians communicate with one another, intimidate rivals, or attract mates. Whatever the exact purpose, it's clear that these features made them stand out in the Triassic landscape. But sails weren't the only eccentricities within the Rauisuchian family. Take Chasmatosichus, for example. Unlike most members of its group, this Rauisuchian was semi-aquatic, spending much of its time in the water. Interestingly, despite their crocodile-like appearances, most Rauisuchians were land-based predators. Chasmatosichus was the rare exception, and it showed clear adaptations for life in aquatic environments. Fossilized tails of Chasmatosichus reveal a large, laterally compressed structure paired with tall neural spines, which suggests it was an excellent swimmer. Its powerful tail likely gave it strong propulsion in the water, much like modern crocodilians. Other adaptations included reduced dermal armor, which made movement in water more efficient, and an elongated neck, which could have been used to snatch fish with precision. But here's the kicker: despite its aquatic abilities, Chasmatosichus still retained functional legs, allowing it to walk on land when needed. Fortunately for any time-traveling visitors to the Triassic, this semi-aquatic predator wasn't the largest threat in its ecosystem. Its diet likely focused on fish and small marine creatures, and it preferred the shallow, warm seas of the time. This behavior made it strikingly similar to another Triassic marine reptile, Nothosaurus. But despite the resemblance, Nothosaurus wasn't a Rauisuchian at all. Once again, this highlights how Rauisuchians seem to have a knack for convergent evolution, developing features that mirrored those of entirely unrelated groups. And this wasn't even the most surprising example. Some Rauisuchians evolved characteristics that made them look eerily similar to theropods, the very dinosaurs they often overshadowed. Typically, Rauisuchians were quadrupedal, but a few decided to break that mold. Enter the bipedal Rauisuchians, such as Shuvosaurus, Aphigia, Papasaurus, and Silosuchus. These groundbreaking predators walked on two legs, much like the theropods of later eras. This shift in posture allowed them to move more efficiently and likely gave them an advantage in hunting specific types of prey. The resemblance to theropods wasn't just superficial. These Rauisuchians truly blurred the line between their group and the dinosaurs that would eventually rise to dominance. From heavily armored giants to sail-backed oddities, aquatic hunters, and bipedal predators, Rauisuchians were an incredibly diverse and adaptable group. Their ability to thrive in such a wide range of environments and develop unique features made them the apex predators of their time. But as we'll see, their reign wouldn't last forever. But it wasn't just their ability to walk on two legs that made these Rauisuchians so strikingly theropod-like. These genera also shared other physical features that blurred the line between themselves and their dinosaur contemporaries. For example, they typically had reduced, claw-like hands, hips that resembled those of theropods, and skulls with structural similarities to certain carnivorous dinosaurs. With these traits, it's easy to understand why early paleontologists mistakenly classified some of these creatures as theropods. However, modern science has since set the record straight. Key differences, like their primitive, Tarzan-like ankles and a pillar-erect posture, a unique adaptation among Rauisuchians, clearly distinguish them from true theropods. Still, their resemblance to dinosaurs was uncanny, and for a time, they shared their world with only the earliest, most primitive dinosaur forms, not the fully fledged theropods that would later dominate the Jurassic. Interestingly, even these early dinosaurs had already adopted bipedalism, just like their Rauisuchian counterparts. But in true Rauisuchian fashion, they took it to a whole new level. Among two-legged creatures of the Triassic, it was often the Rauisuchians that achieved the greatest size and presence, rivaling the giants of later ages. Now, not every bipedal Rauisuchian grew to monstrous proportions. Take Ophidia and Papasaurus, for example. They were relatively smaller, more modest predators that likely relied on speed and agility to survive. But then there was Coelocicus, a true titan among Rauisuchians. Fossil evidence, particularly from its hips and hind limbs, suggests that a fully grown Coelocicus could reach a staggering length of 10 meters, or roughly 33 feet. At the hip, it stood an impressive 2.5 meters tall, about 8 feet. For perspective, that's close in size to the theropod Baryonyx, making it a sort of twin in stature. But there was a key difference. While Coelocicus matched the massive Fossilocetus in length, it was far lighter due to its more gracile skeletal build. Estimates suggest a weight of about 2 tons substantial, but not the heavy weight of its family. Interestingly, Coelocicus broke yet another Rauisuchian tradition, its diet. Unlike the hypercarnivorous majority of its kind, Coelocicus was a herbivore. Its toothless beak was perfectly designed for shearing leaves off trees, a feeding strategies that set it apart from its meat-eating relatives. And it wasn't alone. Other bipedal Rauisuchians, such as Ophidia, were also herbivores. But Papasaurus, on the other hand, stayed true to the family's carnivorous roots. As a smaller, fast-moving predator, it likely hunted like the small theropods it resembled, relying on speed and agility to catch prey. Surprisingly, even Pastasochus, the Rauisuchian that rose to fame in documentaries like Walking with Dinosaurs, might have been a part-time biped. Some paleontologists argue that it could have been fully bipedal, while others believe it alternated between 2 and 4 legs depending on its needs. This evolution toward bipedalism likely provided several advantages, such as better vision to spot prey from a distance or simply more efficient movement in certain environments. That said, quadrupedal Rauisuchians were far from sluggish. While their crocodilian-like appearance might suggest slow, lumbering movement, these apex predators were primarily terrestrial hunters. Unlike modern crocodilians, whose legs stick out to the sides, Rauisuchians had long, powerful legs positioned directly beneath their bodies. This posture allowed them to walk and run with remarkable efficiency. Take Tichinocicus, for example. Fossilized tracks discovered in Europe show that this quadrupedal predator could reach speeds of approximately 12 kilometers or 7 miles per hour. That's faster than the average human jog and likely fast enough to catch most of its prey. What's even more fascinating is that these tracks might not represent the animal's top speed, it's possible Techinoschis could sprint even faster when necessary. Further evidence of their agility can be seen in their front limbs. Even among the fully quadrupedal Rauisuchians, the front legs were often shorter and lighter than the back legs. This adaptation suggests a focus on swift, nimble movement, making them far more dynamic than their crocodilian counterparts. Ultimately, it was this incredible combination of adaptations, diverse locomotion styles, massive size, sharp teeth, and often thick armor that solidified Rauisuchians as the true kings of the Triassic. Long before the dinosaurs took center stage, these apex predators ruled the land with unmatched dominance. Their unique traits and adaptability ensured their supremacy for millions of years. But as we'll see, their reign was not destined to last forever. However, dinosaurs didn't always find themselves under the shadow of Rauisuchian rule. As we mentioned earlier, dinosaurs hadn't even evolved at the start of the Triassic. Based on current evidence, they likely made their debut around 233 million years ago, approximately 16 million years after the first Rauisuchians emerged. This head start gave Rauisuchians a massive evolutionary advantage. As the saying goes, the early bird gets the worm, or in this case, the apex predator gets the prime spot on the food chain. But here's where it gets impressive. Dinosaurs made some remarkable progress in a relatively short period of time. In their early evolutionary chapters, they were quick to diversify and grow in size. The sauropodomorphs, for instance, soon reached notable dimensions, hinting at the titanic creatures they would eventually become. Early theropods like Herrerasaurus and Gojirasaurus also broke ground, reaching lengths of up to 6 meters or around 20 feet, certainly not small by any standard. Yet despite these impressive gains, the dinosaurs still couldn't unseat the Rauisuchians from their throne. Instead, they had to coexist with their far more formidable competitors. For example, Herrerasaurus, as fierce as it might have been, would have had to contend with giants like Fossilosuchus, a predator it couldn't possibly overpower. The fossil record gives us a clear picture of this imbalance of power. In most ecosystems, dinosaurs made up only a small fraction of the animal population. Often, they accounted for no more than 10% of the total fauna. Larger carnivorous dinosaurs were especially rare, their presence limited by the dominance of Rauisuchian predators. Smaller dinosaurs, on the other hand, fared a bit better. One standout was Coelophysis, a quick and nimble theropod no heavier than an Australian cattle dog. This small, speedy dinosaur carved out a unique ecological niche, one that Rauisuchians typically didn't occupy. By relying on its agility and speed, Coelophysis managed to thrive, even in a world ruled by giants. Dinosaurs also seemed to find success in colder environments, where Rauisuchians were less common. These cooler regions may have provided a refuge, allowing dinosaurs to establish a foothold where their competitors struggled to adapt. Still, even in these conditions, Rauisuchians didn't entirely disappear. At least one or two genera almost always held the title of apex predator, even in less hospitable climates. This near-constant presence of Rauisuchians across the globe was a direct result of the Earth's geography during the Triassic. Back then, the continents were merged into a massive supercontinent known as Pangaea. This unified landmass made it easy for Rauisuchians to spread far and wide, and as a result, their fossils have been discovered on nearly every continent everywhere except Antarctica. The world of the Triassic wasn't just geographically different, though. In many ways, it was almost unrecognizable. Much of the supercontinent was dominated by vast, arid landscapes, with huge portions of the Earth resembling an enormous desert. This harsh environment shaped the evolution of its inhabitants, forcing them to adapt to extremes unlike anything we see today. But even in these scorching deserts, life thrived, and the battle for dominance continued. As we'll explore, the Triassic was a time of constant change and competition. with dinosaurs slowly but surely rising to meet the Rauisuchians in a clash of prehistoric titans. Amid the vast dryness of the Triassic supercontinent, the rare river or lake would have been a lifeline, drawing in countless animals desperate for water. For Rauisuchians, these scarce water sources weren't just vital, they were battlegrounds that showcased their dominance. During periods of drought, which were alarmingly frequent in this arid world, the fossil record indicates that Rauisuchians thrived. They often became the apex scavengers, capitalizing on their strength and adaptability to claim these dwindling resources for themselves. In such harsh times, it seems these predators were often the last ones standing. Some paleontologists believe this dominance was no accident. One theory suggests that Rauisuchians gained an upper hand through social behaviors. Fossils of certain species, like Dromaeosaurus, have been discovered in groups. Most notably, one site unearthed 9 individuals clustered together. This evidence hints at possible pack behavior, which would have made them even more formidable predators, capable of taking down larger prey or fending off competition. With advantages like these, dinosaurs seem to be fighting a losing battle. The future of life on Earth looked like it was firmly in the grip of the Rauisuchians. But then, in a twist of fate, the very thing that would later bring the dinosaurs' own reign to an end turned out to be their salvation: a mass extinction event. While many people associate the Mesozoic with the famous asteroid that wiped out the dinosaurs, the era actually witnessed 2 of the Big 5 extinction events. The lesser-known Triassic-Jurassic extinction, which struck approximately 201.4 million years ago, was a cataclysmic reset button for life on Earth. The exact cause of this disaster remains a bit murky, but the leading theory points to the Central Atlantic Magmatic Province, or camp, as the culprit. This was no ordinary volcanic activity camp, was Earth's largest continental igneous province, covering an area larger than modern-day Canada. Its eruptions weren't a single, explosive event, but a series of massive outpourings over an estimated 600,000 years. These eruptions occurred in 4 distinct phases, each wreaking havoc on the planet's ecosystems. The effects were devastating. Around 75% of all species were wiped out, with Pseudotsuchians, including the Rauisuchians, taking a particularly heavy blow. This apocalyptic event marked the end for every single Rauisuchian genus, effectively clearing the top of the food chain and leaving a gaping void where apex predators once ruled. For dinosaurs, however, this devastation was an opportunity. With their primary competitors gone, they were finally free to rise. But why did Rauisuchians vanish while dinosaurs survived? This question remains one of paleontology's great mysteries. One prevailing idea is that dinosaurs were better equipped to handle the cold and the climatic upheavals caused by volcanic eruptions. Fossil evidence suggests that dinosaurs had already started to adapt to colder environments, possibly giving them an edge when temperatures plummeted during the extinction event. Others propose a simpler explanation. Dinosaurs may have been faster at evolving, enabling them to outpace their competitors when survival demanded rapid adaptation. And then there's the possibility that it all came down to sheer luck, an unpredictable roll of nature's dice that tipped the scales in favor of dinosaurs. Whatever the reason, one thing is certain. By the time the early Jurassic rolled around, dinosaurs had emerged victorious. With the Rauisuchians gone, they began to spread and diversify, laying the foundation for one of the most extraordinary dynasties in Earth's history, a reign that would last for more than 160 million years.